Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts to get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. We are live on a fantastic and fabulous Friday here, live in Denver, Colorado. That is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us a part of your night this evening. We're live on all platforms, iHeartRadio, YouTube, X, Twitch, TikTok, and Instagram. That is where you can like, follow, subscribe, and hit the bell button to keep you up to date on future and past shows. We got a double whammy tonight. Jeffrey Hooks of Let It Ride podcast is going to be joining us here in just a few seconds. And we've also got Justin Hardin of J in the Bay talking about those San Francisco 49ers. I cannot wait for it. Stacked show tonight. So much really to kind of go over, but I'm excited about it. And so as of right now, I mean, we've got all of our coaching hires are officially closed now, as Dan Quinn is now the new head coach of the Washington Commanders. So I'm excited about what the future is going to hold for a lot of these franchises. Some are more old and experienced, and some are new and younger. So it will be interesting to kind of see how this rolls. So we're going to get started with it really quickly with a good friend of ours. He is the betting guru and the betting expert. I've listened to him actually just recently talking about the conference championships, and I have been more than impressed. So joining me live via the Global Satellite Network presented by StreamYard, Jeffrey Hook. Jeffrey, I got to be honest with you. And I'm a betting man myself. I'm originally born and raised in Vegas. You know how we don't sleep at all. We're 24/7. We love these bets. But I got to tell you, I mean, it's funny when listening to you on your podcast with the prediction of the championship games, I went the complete opposite. I thought that the Ravens were finally going to do it, and the bet line was going to go over because I just felt like it's a great offense. The run game I thought was going to be very, very solid. We got the opposite. And then I didn't think it was going to be that much in Detroit and San Francisco because they're both really good teams. I felt like San Francisco, their defense was going to show up. I mean, when going through that and recapping the conference championship, I mean, you basically called it from there. What were some things you saw that maybe for our audience to get educated in sports betting that maybe they did not catch?
Well, when you start with that Detroit Lions and San Francisco game, I knew both offenses were going to come out firing in that one, particularly when you look at the Lions. The outside zone run, everyone thinks about that San Francisco defense and thinks, oh, yeah, they're a great defense, but they've been susceptible to that outside zone run. And with the speed of Jahmyr Gibbs, you saw it early in that game, Detroit was able to take advantage of that. So that's why I like the over there. And the under in the Ravens-Chiefs game, that was just more of, I thought the Ravens were going to control the game on the ground. When you look at how you beat the Chiefs, I mean, they allow the second most yards per pass attempt in the league. They allow the second fewest yards per pass attempt in the league. So you can't beat this team through the air. So I was thinking the Ravens, the best rushing team in the league, they're going to come out and they're going to run it down their throat. Just 6 running backs handoffs in that one. So we didn't get to the under in the way that I thought that we would. But when you look at this KC offense, they're no longer that explosive offense that they were of old. They're more ball control and they're relying on that defense. So that's why I like the under there.
Yeah, and it really was interesting. And I think at the end of the day, the narrative of that is that Kansas City's defense, they came out, they balled out, and I don't know what it was, but it just felt like Baltimore ran the ball one time and they did not run again by the time they got to the second half. That's just weird to me. That has been the forte of Baltimore's offense. You run, then it gives a chance for Lamar to do his thing. He throws the ball. He either escapes out of pressure. It was just weird to me. But, I really did think we got a great game out of Detroit and San Francisco. I felt like Detroit all year long. Think about this. If you remember correctly, because I want to know what the line was, because I said early on, Detroit is a great first half offense. I mean, what were, in your opinion, with the bet line, I mean, how did they basically shape this up for a first half offense like Detroit?
So, I mean, that's just credit to Ben Johnson. I mean, he did his homework, like I said, with those outside zone runs. And then Jared Goff, I mean, if you look at his pass attempts in that first half, he was just on fire. And the second half, you get a little bit of regression there with a couple of bad luck drops and then some questionable decisions by Dan Campbell. But I just credit this Detroit offensive line. They've been bullying people all season, and Ben Johnson, just a genius play caller. I actually thought it was a good decision by him, by the way, to return to Detroit, not take one of the last remaining head coaching jobs. I think there'll be a much better offer for him in the future.
Absolutely. And I mean, think about it. I mean, there was uncertainties between Seattle and Washington. I mean, you take the Seattle job, you don't know if Geno Smith's honestly going to rebound, or maybe they might go and draft or trade a quarterback. I feel like if it were me, I'd probably be getting on the phone with Chicago about, Justin Fields, if that were, that was my opinion on it. But the other thing is Washington, you don't know if Sam Howell's going to work. You're probably going to have to draft a quarterback. It looks like Drake May might be the favorite. But yeah, I really am happy that Ben Johnson stayed put in Detroit, because it feels like there's unfinished business. He doesn't want to walk away with the narrative of, oh, he's just a really good first half offensive coordinator. No, he wants to be great on both halves. I think because you could clearly see it from just the lines itself. The second half was never strong for Detroit. It felt like they couldn't find the rhythm. They could still move the ball, but they could not translate them into scores. So I felt like that was kind of the problem. But moving forward on it, I'm sure you heard this a lot with, the bet lines. This year kind of felt like it was the year for the fans. It was really weird how the lines really shaped up, because at the end of it, towards, the end of the season, it was more of, you want to take the favorable quarterback. Am I right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, that you can go into any game. I mean, particularly you can look at the Super Bowl and say, how many people are going to want to put money on Brock Purdy against Patrick Mahomes? I mean, so I think that's why you see a lot of public money right now coming in on KC. Everyone's just, maybe they bet against Mahomes in the first 2 rounds and they're feeling really dumb about it. Like, oh man, why did I ever bet against Patrick Mahomes? And you're seeing a lot of shift the other way for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it really is interesting of it. And again, Kansas City, 4th Super Bowl right now in 5 years. And, the whole narrative of it, I mean, I could go on for days. I mean, the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce thing, I mean, I ain't about it. But here's the thing is that, yeah, you look at a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, and I'm sure that this takes into a lot of effect of what the bet lines look like, because the fact of, one, you're getting a generational quarterback that despite having not the best receiving core, but he gives Kansas City always some type of edge, because I think part of that is you've got a great coach in Andy Reid on top of all of that. So I mean, looking at it, just kind of previewing the Super Bowl a little bit, in Kansas City's case, I mean, how did the bet lines really favor for them? Because I felt like when you get those point edges, mostly it's because you got your star quarterback, you got your star, your superstar head coach, and the rest of it will basically figure itself out. How did this really pan out this year for the Chiefs?
I mean, a part of it is this team just woke up for the playoffs, and you always knew that they were going to be a sleeping giant. A lot of people were down on them in the regular season. I mean, Travis Kelce, he returned to his postseason form. Patrick Mahomes did the same thing, and a lot of people are looking at the 17 points that they put up against the Ravens and thinking, well, the offense didn't really perform that well. And I'm going the other way with it. Patrick Mahomes did what he had to do in the second half of that game. He knew the only way that the Ravens were getting back in that game was if he made a mistake, and he didn't want to make the mistake to let them back in the game. I promise you, if the Ravens had made that a game and the KC needed the drive, needed the score, Patrick Mahomes would have got it done. But he's sitting back thinking, hey, these guys aren't scoring. My defense is getting it done. All I have to do is play mistakes-free football, and we're going to another Super Bowl.
Yeah, and that's the one thing is because, I mean, when you're down in the trenches like that, and again, a lot of people will tell you this, I'm always in favor of it, is that the regular season doesn't really mean squat unless you really do you perform in the playoffs. And I think that Kansas City and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, they've instilled that since Mahomes has been, in this league. And I think the biggest part, it's hard to go against a guy like that. That's why I'm like, when I look at the lines, now I do want to shift to San Francisco on this because let's be honest, Brock Purdy did not look his best in the games he's played Green Bay and the games he's played Detroit. It kind of felt like there was so much anxiety and pressure at the start of the game. And it looked like Jordan Love clearly looked like the better quarterback than Brock Purdy did. But in the end, I mean, adversity kind of speaks for itself. It ain't about just if you're starting it solid. I mean, he started very rough. It's more about how you finish this game. Does this kind of affect the line for San Francisco? Because I know that the hard part is they look at Kansas City as the underdog, and then they look at San Francisco as the favorite. But how could that possibly kind of hinder a little the outcome based upon the lines for San Francisco?
So it's tough for me. I'm really struggling with picking the side on this game. I mean, for the reason you just laid out, Brock Purdy looked terrible in the first half of that game, and then I was talking about the Kansas City offense. I mean, in the second half of the Ravens game, they just kind of did what they had to do. You could argue that both teams easily could have lost their championship games, and it's really tough to really, honestly, it's really, really tough for me to pick a side on this one. I could see San Francisco coming out, they have the superior skill players. I mean, and I could see Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and those guys getting the job done. So right now, I'm on the under 47.5. That's the only lean that I have. I would tell anybody that likes San Francisco, the way you beat this Kansas City defense is on the ground. You look at the games that they've lost this year. They lost to Detroit. Detroit ran the ball 30. If you take away kneel downs, that's one thing you have to do when you look at rushing totals for a game. It's really important to go back and take out kneel downs because they can really skew rushing numbers. Detroit ran the ball 31 times for 121 yards and beat them. Denver ran it 40 times for 153 and beat them. Philadelphia 24 for 117. Green Bay 25 for 129. Buffalo 26 for 120. Las Vegas 29 for 157. The way you beat this team is on the ground. So I would tell anybody that likes San Francisco, if you're going to bet San Francisco win the game, I'd put a little sprinkle on Christian McCaffrey at plus 475 to win the MVP. If San Francisco wins this game, I think that's how they get it done.
It's kind of funny because we're back in the same similar narrative with the Chiefs and Niners since 2019. I think the only difference with the Niners is that this year they've got Christian McCaffrey. They got a solid runner. That year they had Raheem Mostert, who basically, yes, he was on a hot streak for quite a while. But then eventually Kansas City came out in situational defense and they started to kind of, they kind of started to dismantle San Francisco a little bit. But I think part of that is it was a one possession type game. So I think in this one kind of going into it, I agree with you 100%. You've got to be able to attack the run because I think that was also part of the problem with Baltimore. Why they steered away from the run game, I don't know. Kansas City's run defense just was not that impressive. So it's like you have to basically run the ball. But if I had to basically, let's say if I was going up into the air, who exactly would I trust more on the line? Because I'm hearing a lot of just Debo, because he's so exceptional and he's more of that Swiss Army knife for San Francisco. He can run, he can catch, he can do everything. Or would I maybe possibly looking at targets like George Kittle or Brandon Ayuk?
Well, I'm actually really low on Ayuk and Samuel in this game just because these KC corners are so good. I mean, McDuffie and Snead, they don't get talked about as much as a lot of corners in the league. They might be the best duo in the league. I mean, that's why Kansas City is allowing the second fewest yards per pass attempt in the league. When it comes to Brock Purdy in this game, though, I mean, you talked about that 2019 matchup. But what did it come down to? Jimmy Garoppolo missed a throw late in that game that could have won him the game. Brock Purdy doesn't have to be the best quarterback in the world. It's can he find one of his guys in that big moment? Can he make the clutch play like he did against Detroit? He didn't have the best game in the world. He got a couple of lucky breaks, but he also made some great plays with his legs down the stretch, found his guys. And I mean, he doesn't have to be Patrick Mahomes. He has to be slightly better than Jimmy Garoppolo. And I'm still 50-50 on whether or not he can do it because we've seen both sides of Brock Purdy, good and bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's kind of interesting because you're taking one quarterback from Jimmy Garoppolo back then to now having Brock Purdy, where I could honestly say I think Purdy's football IQ is slightly higher than Jimmy Garoppolo's. Now, I do think the ability does go into effect. I also am about that if you've got a player in the trenches, you got to ask yourself when you're in that locker room in halftime, how am I going to get out of here? How am I going to basically take on that adversity and now really run with it to where we're going to win this game? I think that's kind of the big narrative with Brock Purdy. I mean, again, San Francisco, most of this is Kyle Shanahan wants to rewrite that whole narrative of he's been there before where he had a 28-3 lead and he's trying to basically destroy that. And he's also trying to destroy the narrative he had last time with Kansas City. So I want to shift to this because now we're going to have new head coaches. And I can honestly say there's been some pretty good slam dunks. And I also do think there's some question marks in the middle of it. This season, Detroit went to as far as the NFC Championship, which not a whole lot of us would have predicted. I felt like these guys had some dudes. 6 of their draft picks hit. I know this may be way too early into next season, but what do you see? And has there been lines out there yet that could potentially be who might be the next Detroit Lions for next season?
So it all depends. I mean, it depends on the draft. You have to wait for the draft. The Chicago Bears showed all the signs at the end of last season. They showed all the signs. They could be, just like when Cincinnati got Joe Burrow, they could get Caleb Williams in there and they could have the same type of success. But we don't even know if they're going to take Caleb Williams. They could trade that pick. They could keep Justin Fields, and that could be a route to success too. But I really like the way that the Chicago defense was playing at the end of the year, and whether they trade Fields and add pieces that way around Caleb Williams, or they trade that number 1 pick and add pieces around Justin Fields, I think the Chicago Bears could be a sleeper next year.
Oops, sorry about that. Apparently seems to have been some technical difficulties up from here, but we're getting those all fixed up. But you were saying, to your point just before the technical difficulty,
Oh, yeah, I was talking about the Chicago Bears. I think they could be the sleeper next year. I'm not sure when I cut off, but they could go one of two directions. Obviously, they could trade Justin Fields, add pieces around Caleb Williams, or trade that number one pick and add pieces around Justin Fields. But either way, love the way that defense is playing. They had a very underrated defense, one of the best defenses in the league the last half of the season. So I think that's a team that could be a sleeper next year.
That is pretty interesting. And I mean, and it's funny because now having, Jim Harbaugh back in the league and now with the LA Chargers, I mean, there's going to be some teams that's going to brew up, but that is very interesting. And Chicago has a lot to think about. And I'll be talking about them a little bit later on here up onto the show. But one thing to ask before letting you go is, so the bet line right now, it's basically standing as San Francisco as the favorite, right?
Yeah, minus 2.5 last I checked.
Oh my goodness, minus 2.5. So going and looking at this, I know you mentioned you were going to take the under on the 47 points. Like now the bet line at 2.5. That's kind of hard to basically go against Patrick Mahomes up at this point. How do you personally see from the lines that are basically given out? How do you basically see this Super Bowl really panning out? And could this basically be something that for our audience, what they need to look out for if they're looking to bet?
So I would say that if you like the Chiefs in this game, I think it's pretty safe to take the under. I don't think that there's any way that the Chiefs win this game in a shootout. If the Chiefs play their brand of football, it's going to be long, sustained drives. It's going to be shutting down that high-powered San Francisco offense. They're going to lean on their defense. And if you like Kansas City, I think you can pretty safely play a correlative parlay and take the under as well. And as I said, if you like San Francisco, I think Christian McCaffrey to win MVP. I mean, if you're going to take San Francisco, I would say put a little sprinkle on the plus 475, get yourself a double payout there. Because the quarterbacks are always going to be favored to win that award. But this KC pass defense is so good. And if San Francisco is going to win the game, it's going to be on the ground with Christian McCaffrey.
Well, there you go. You want to get smarter with sports betting? Definitely check out Jeffrey Hooks. Where can people find your podcast at Let It Ride Podcasts?
So it's just the Let It Ride podcast. I'm on Apple Podcasts. I'm on Spotify. I'll be posting the Super Bowl show probably on Monday or Tuesday. During the NFL season, I post episodes every Wednesday.
There you go, folks. Jeffrey Hooks of Let It Ride Podcast. So good to have you on and so good to basically educate our audience here when it comes to the bet lines. Good to see you, my man. Take care.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. So there you go. I mean, I got smarter by the time that I ended up, learning about just these bet lines. I'm really, really excited for what the Super Bowl is really going to bring. There's a lot of question marks. There's a bunch of question marks, but I also do think there are some, to some degree, and I think like for this, because 2.5 is just insanity. But the good thing of it is, I do got a fellow San Francisco 49er content creator out there. We go a long way back from where we were in our previous place, and now seeing him on the come up and shouting it out for the Bay Area. My good friend, Justin Hardin, as they always call him by Jay in the Bay. He is joining us. Everything's got to feel good in the Bay, my friend. And of course, as usual, your signature mask with everything San Francisco 49ers. Tell the whole audience what's up there in the Bay.
What's good? Oh, it's a pleasure to be on with you tonight, Jake. Hope all is well, but what a time to be alive and what a time to be a 49er fan as the Niners are in the Super Bowl again, the second time in the Shanahan-Lynch era. Hey, it's a great time to be a Niner fan, man. Thanks for having me tonight.
You bet, man. So it's funny. I myself got a little bit educated with what the sports bet lines basically have looked at. So now it's at 2.5. That's insanity for me because it feels a lot like you got to lean on San Francisco's run game. Now, to basically ask you upon this, because Christian McCaffrey, I felt like, has been an absolute game changer in this Niners offense. To recapping the regular season and going all the way into the playoffs and now being in the Super Bowl again, how important has Christian McCaffrey's presence been with this Niners offense, and especially, too, with the building and development of Brock Purdy?
Man, CMC, I've said it before on previous live streams. I feel like that was the best trade in 49ers history. I would say since I've been watching the team for about 20 plus years, definitely the best trade in the 2000 era, I would say. CMC does it all, not only on the ground, he also catches the ball well out the backfield. He had over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. I believe he in some notifications or publications, I should say, he won Offensive Player of the Year. He's also up for MVP. So he's just been incredible. He makes everything go. Obviously, Brock is having a hell of a year as well, but I don't think any of this would be possible without CMC. I think he's the best running back in the NFL. Based on his production. And, he's played every game this year except the last one. He didn't need to play. But I know he had some injury concerns his last 2 years with the Panthers, but, that was shored up. I don't believe he's missed a game due to injury. I don't believe that we didn't need him actually to play. So he's been incredible. He's been incredible for us.
It's kind of funny because, the whole entire narrative going into the Super Bowl and even for, into the playoffs, the whole thing is all wrapped around Kyle Shanahan. Now, we know Shanahan has been in this position several times. We remember basically as him as an offensive coordinator in Atlanta, where they had the 28-3 lead and the rest is history.
Don't remind me.
we were at this position again with the Chiefs in 2019 where there was the lead and then in came Mahomes. This has to be a win it or nothing type of feel if you're Kyle Shanahan in this building. And how else would you think Kyle Shanahan in the last 2 times being in the Super Bowl and experience this? Could we potentially see a different narrative out of the head coach?
I think so. Obviously, everyone's looking back to when the 2 teams last played in the Super Bowl. And I think the biggest difference is who's playing at quarterback. I think Jimmy G was solid for us, but he didn't make the same plays that Brock Purdy is making. And if you watch every snap, you see it, the off the script plays. He scrambles for first downs if he needs to. He throws balls in tight windows. So I think the biggest difference is Brock Purdy. Obviously, CMC. We have Trent Williams now, the best left tackle in the NFL. I think Ayuk and Debo are better. Kittle is better as well. I think Kittle has been better since the emergence of Brock Purdy statistically. So I think that's the major difference. I think our defense is, I don't know if it's better, at least not against the run. I can't lie. Like our run defense is concerning. Green Bay gashed us up. Aaron Jones last week. We were gashed up. Both running backs were gashing up. Gibbs and what was his name? Montgomery. They were gashing us up. Detroit. So that's a concern. But I think defensively, we just have to make adjustments, whether that's adding another defensive lineman on the line of scrimmage, bringing that safety into the box. So that way you got 9 defenders in the box. We have to slow down the Chiefs' run. There's make no mistake about it. And if we have a lead, lean on the best running back in the NFL. Just run the ball.
Boy, it's funny because I was about to ask that, but you gave me exactly the perfect game plan to basically slowing down now Isaiah Pacheco that they're going in, because I've watched Pacheco, since last season. He is the kind that is a very fast runner, but he's the kind that is not afraid when defenses basically come in to tackle him. I think he kind of expects it. He's like, look, just give me your best hits. If you can knock me down, great. If you can't, well, then you got a serious problem. So that is definitely the best game plan, I would say, to help to slowing down Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah. So then, all right, I want to go to Brock Purdy on this one because I know people have questioned so much about basically, is he MVP caliber? Is he not MVP caliber? Is he sick? And then you heard about, the whole Cam Newton thing, which I was just like, look, a game manager is not that bad because at the same time, if you we manage everything in our lives. We basically manage our marriages, our relationships, we manage our work lifestyles and so much. When I look at Brock Purdy, I think it's a perfect example of being the game manager. But there has been some question marks. It felt like Jordan Love played better than Brock Purdy. It felt like Jared Goff played better than Brock Purdy. There were some of those things, and I'd say there's a lot of adversity on Brock Purdy's way. But I think what is special to kind of cap this is that he just sees the adversity, but yet knows how to overcome it. Is there some type of secret sauce you've seen with Purdy following this team and following them in the playoffs that really can help to edge for San Francisco to win the Super Bowl?
The biggest thing with Brock Purdy for me is when he started unexpectedly because Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt. He came in the Miami game and led us to victory in that game. The moment is never too big for Purdy. That's what I've noticed. Has he struggled at times? Yeah, he struggled against Baltimore. Hell of a team. I actually thought we would be playing Baltimore in the Super Bowl. There are other teams where he struggled against when we had our 2 or 3 losing streak, 2 to 3 game losing streak at the beginning of the season, or I should say, right before the midpoint. We had lost a few games in a row. He struggled a little bit there, but when we've needed him in big games and big moments, he's definitely thrived in that situation. We were down 27 to we outscored Detroit 27-7 in the second half, partly due to Detroit's misfortunes, but you have to capitalize on that. But Brock is making everyone around him better. I don't remember the last time a team had 1,000-yard receiver in Ayuk, 1,000-yard receiver in Debo, in Kittle, and also CMC having over 2,000 yards from scrimmage. So I think that's more than a game manager. Now, if you're asking me, is he your prototypical quarterback? Hell no. I mean, you want someone that's like 6'4", like who you guys got in LA. That's who you want. Mm-hmm. And let's be real. Everyone was wrong about Purdy. He's Mr. Irrelevant. If you look at the history of Mr. Irrelevant players, most guys don't even make the squad. You'll see a few kickers that succeeded, but any other position players, they don't have long careers in the NFL. And Brock Purdy has shocked the world. And it's a beautiful thing to see. It's a great story. And to cap it all off with a Super Bowl victory, I mean, you can't write a better script than that.
It's kind of interesting, and especially, and to your opinion, because being a part of, the NFC, I can make the argument that the NFC is more of a conference that loves to find their hidden gems. Whereas for the AFC, you got the star quarterback, you got a chance. And there's high expectations from that. I kind of look into this. And let's say, hypothetically speak, if somehow, some way, that if the Chiefs' defense is too much for Brock Purdy, do you kind of feel like that at some point, John Lynch will probably have to sit down with everybody? Because this is just too much talent for them to not be able to, at the very least, win a championship. But is this kind of something that if you're John Lynch on the back of your head, that if, let's say, the worst happens, is this something that they're really going to have to discuss in the war room?
I don't think so. I think it would be wise to always draft a quarterback on day 3. I think that makes sense from a financial standpoint. And because, hey, guys get hurt in the NFL. But I think Brock Purdy has earned the trust of not only his teammates in the locker room, but also the coaching staff and the front office. I mean, hell, we traded away Trey Lance. I mean, after trading away all that draft capital to get Trey Lance and to see that not come to fruition, we traded him to basically say, hey, Brock, this is your job. Hey, there's no more Jimmy Garoppolo. This is your job, Brock. So I think it doesn't matter what happens. I don't think in the Super Bowl, I think Brock Purdy has proved that he belongs. He can succeed at the NFL. And I think he's a 49ers quarterback for years to come. Now, obviously, I don't want to see the worst, obviously. There's a stat. I think it's Brock Purdy. When he doesn't throw an interception, the Niners are undefeated. And when he does throw an interception, I think the Niners are like 2-6. So, he's going to have to protect the football, take what the defense gives him. And also Shanahan's got to call some great plays that'll ease him into the game. But one thing about Brock, there's a saying, if you pray for rain, you can't complain about the mud. And Brock loves to throw the ball deep. He loves to throw the ball in tight windows. It's all good when our guy catches the ball, but when the other team catches it, you just have to kind of live with the good and bad. He's not. I think a game manager plays to not lose the game. Right. If you watch Brock play, he's the total opposite of Jimmy G, in my opinion, based on what I've seen. Brock Purdy makes plays whether he's running the ball off script, or if he's throwing in tight windows, or if he's escaping the rush and he rolls out and then he delivers a pass. So, I think he's much more than a game manager. But all that won't even matter if we don't win on Sunday. All that talk won't matter. It's all about getting that W on Sunday.
Well, hopefully Cam Newton's watching this, because there you go. Take notes. It's exactly what the difference is between that. Because you know what? I'd rather would have that than to basically be a game changer, but yet can't really manage under pressure. And I think that's one of the things Purdy is so good for. So I know we talked about, the game plan against the run, but what do you think may be the game plan as to basically the X factor that the Chiefs may have in Travis Kelce? We know that the narrative's been all on him, him and the Taylor Swift thing. But the other thing is, he looks like he's just kind of rejuvenated for as old as he's getting right now. There's not much left in the tank. But how do you think that this game plan should set for San Francisco if, in fact, Patrick Mahomes does his thing and he finds his X factor in Travis Kelce? What is the plan to eliminate that?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. How do you stop Pat Mahomes, a future Hall of Fame quarterback? I mean, we had a lead on this guy a few years back, 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. You just can't allow him to scramble and make plays. I think if we slow down Pacheco, and I didn't mention it, but Pacheco's a hell of a running back. You mentioned it earlier. He's a hell of a running back. He runs for contact. He is not afraid. So I'm looking forward to those collisions that are going to happen on Super Bowl Sunday. But Kelce, he's another Hall of Fame talent. He's got the most catches in postseason history. He passed the GOAT, Jerry Rice. Come on, man. I don't see how Kelce gets so open. But I think it seems like he knows when the defense is playing zone, and he runs his route and he sets right in between a few defenders, makes himself open and catches a pass, and Pat Mahomes can find him. But I think we have to put Fred Warner on him. I think he's one of the better cover corners in the NFL. If you need to bracket the coverage, double Kelce, because I don't think now they don't have a Tyreek Hill on this team. They don't have him, so we don't have to worry about that type of player who can really stretch the field deep. They've got MVS, but he doesn't strike fear in the defense like Tyreek Hill would. So they've got Rice, they've got Pacheco, they've got Kelce. If we can limit the Chiefs to maybe 17 points or less, I think we'll be fine. But also on third downs, where if it's a third and long, you got to have a spy in there. I don't know if people out there, you play Madden. I know for me, if it's 3rd and 8 and I'm playing against a mobile quarterback, you got to have a spy. They love to scramble out the pocket and, scamper for that first down. So you have to eliminate that as a possibility. And also don't penalize yourself. That's one thing. We can't give the Chiefs extra chances to get first downs and give them free plays. And I know the Chiefs, their offensive line, man, they've got a lot of penalties that have been committed by that Chiefs O-line. That's what I've seen in the playoffs. So that's something else to look forward to.
So I got to ask this because, this whole Super Bowl is nothing but a sea of red. And unfortunately, you're going to be in a place that just can't stand both sides.
Yeah.
But they can't stand the team that's in the same division as they are. And you kind of already see how pissed that they are. And then going back from the roots from Oakland and San Francisco, there's a lot of that Bay Area rivalry. Yeah. How would you kind of see this play out from just being at Allegiant Stadium? I've been there once, and I think it's a great place. It's indoor. I also do think that, I've said this before with previous people. I don't think a lot of people are prepared for what a Super Bowl is going to look like in Las Vegas. Not even the Vegas residents. And look, there are Niners fans left and right Either they're coming from Santa Clara County or they're literally flooding the streets of Las Vegas. But how would you kind of see this play out from the fans' experience being out there in Las Vegas? Is this kind of something that you kind of feel like this is going to help hype us up even more? How do you see this?
Yeah, it's the first of its kind. There's never been a Super Bowl in Vegas, and it's funny you mentioned, the Chiefs are in the same division as the Raiders, so they're going to be in their stadium, and the Niners and Raiders don't like each other, so it's going to be funny how that plays out. But yeah, it's going to be an incredible time to be in Vegas. A lot going on, obviously. Wish I could be there, but I was just looking at hotels. You can't even get a hotel in Vegas right now. Like, everything is sold out. But yeah, it's going to be a fun time, and I'd imagine the Super Bowl will be held in Vegas, every like 7 years or less. I would imagine it's going to be a go-to spot. But as far as the game itself, I think it's going to be a back and forth game. I think the Chiefs will be able to run the ball against us early, and I think our defensive coordinator, Steve Wilks, we call him Sideline Wilks because he started off calling defensive plays up at the booth. We struggled a little bit on defense, and the head coach Kyle Shanahan said, "Hey, you need to come down to the sideline." So we call Steve Sideline Steve. But I think it's going to be up to him to make adjustments. I think you should start off with a 5-man defensive front, bring that safety down in the box, basically dare KC to run the ball, because Pat Mahomes still has the arm, right? He still got a rocket for an arm, but who can really beat you over the top on KC? There's no Tyreek Hill. Rice is a very good rookie receiver, but wouldn't classify him as a 4.2, 4.3 speedster type of guy. So I think the Niners defense should be able to corral that running game. You just got to not allow Mahomes to do what he's done before, and that's make great plays. I think we'll be just fine. I think we should, if it were up to me, run the ball at least 25 to 35 times with a mix of CMC and Elijah Mitchell. I would love to see that. Basically limit the Chiefs' possessions on offense by, winning that time of possession. I think that would be key for the Niners. But I don't know, man. Shanahan, he believes in Purdy, but sometimes that could be a detriment. Sometimes he just wants to throw the ball with Purdy and not run the ball as much with CMC. We've seen that before in the regular season and in the game against Green Bay. Like, we didn't, really run the ball that much. But hey, of course, I'm taking my Niners to win. I'm not sure if you want me to give a score prediction now, but
sure,
I see.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, we've heard it from our bet expert, because now it's a 2.5. I'm surprised it even got there. I could have seen it as just, a 1.5, because this is going to look like a field goal game, in my opinion. So
I mean, if you look at both teams' playoff journey so far this year, the Chiefs have had a more impressive journey. They were on the road in every game. Right, except for the Dolphins game, but every game after that, they blew out the Dolphins. They beat the Ravens, and then the team they beat before that was the Bills. So 2 out of 3 games that were on the road, they went through those 3 tougher teams. I think that's a tougher, game of games to go through than playing Detroit, playing Green Bay, and of course, we've only played 2 games, but then we were at home. So I was kind of surprised that the Niners were favored, but Vegas, they don't have all those buildings out there in the middle of nowhere because they've lost money, right? They know what they're doing out there. They want people to bet. They're going to get a lot of money from California for the Niners betting. So I think it makes sense from a betting standpoint. You want to get the most money riding on the Niners, but I think it's going to be a close game. That's what I'm hoping for. I can see the Niners winning like 27-23. That's what I think will happen. Real close, back and forth. Yeah, I can see that happening.
Yeah, that's a pretty damn good score prediction. I almost kind of lean into the point of a 30-28 because of the fact of one, special teams is going to basically get involved. They're going to get more repetitions, but at the same time too, there's going to be scoring back and forth. You're ready to play basically a potential shootout if that's the case, but still playing gridiron football in the defense. Sure. It's kind of funny, and just to kind of give you a note, but I came across a post where apparently, according to CMC's mom, that apparently they tried to get a suite, but apparently it's $2.5 million to get a suite. and they can't afford it. That's insane.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised by my hometown. I mean, everyone wants the best out of everything, but it's just like, good God, can we eat?
Everything's more expensive in Vegas. It's the place to be.
So funny because, years ago, we used to be so used to, New York's and the Bostons and the Dallases and Chicago's of the world. Now Los Angeles, the whole West Coast is starting to, kind of make its come up. But it's.
I mean, when the F1 racing comes to your town, it shuts everything down. I mean, hey, that says it all. And you guys got hockey. You got women's basketball. You got the Raiders. You're going to get the A's. So it's like, I mean, Vegas is happening, man. That's the place to be.
Oh, yeah. That's why I'm just like, I'm really hoping for a really good Super Bowl because I don't know if fans are truthfully prepared for it. Now, we did have the Pro Bowl, but this is an even higher ceiling than any of us would expect. But this will be really fun. Justin, appreciate the time, man. Where can people find you for all diehard Niners fans that love to find your content?
Hey, appreciate you having me on, Jake. It's been a blast. We got to do this again, man. It's good to reminisce and kick back with you, man. Because like you said in the preview, we go way back. So it's good to chop it up with you, man. And people can find me on Jay in the Bay on YouTube, IG, Twitter, TikTok. Also, I'm part of a 4-man team that's called Straight Out of the Bay. That's also another YouTube channel, IG, Twitter as well. So in that group, there's Celts, there's Bay Area Baller, Amin the Dream. So we talk about 49ers football, and we will be talking about them every Monday night. And of course, the post game with the Super Bowl. So that's what I'm doing. Love it. And hey, thanks again for having me on, man. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Justin Hardin, Jay in the Bay. That's all good in the Bay. Appreciate the time, man. Enjoy it. We will see you next weekend for Super Bowl 58. Enjoy it. Take care, man. And we will see you soon.
Take it easy. All right.
You bet. Yeah, I do think that it's crazy. We're going to take a little bit of a short break from here. When we come back, we're going to discuss a little bit more about it up on the Super Bowl because I know next week it's all about the Super Bowl. It's going to be all about it. So I'm really excited for it. But anyway, I've been talking about this since Super Bowl 58 is around the corner. I know a lot of you get excited for stuff like this, and I myself get excited for when it comes to sports bets. But you want the best bets with the best lines, the best guarantees. We just had a sporting expert, Jeffrey Hooks, there at Let It Ride Podcast, all big on the bets. Check out BetUS.com. BetUS has you covered on all the best lines for Super Bowl 58. They also have a couple of ongoing bet lines during the NBA, the NHL season, baseball season right up and around the corner. The most trustworthy sports book out there online, BetUS.com. When you sign up, link is in the description. You'll get 125% in bonuses. Can't wait for it. 30 risk-free bets. That's a hell of a deal. A big-time bonus to ensure your deposit and your bets can get you in the best seat for the best successes in all of your sports bets. With all the best sports books and also casino play, if you're really looking to get some free play in, check it all out. BetUS has you all covered. That's BetUS.com. BetUS, where the game begins.
Snake Sports Talk Show is sponsored by Muscle Tech, with hundreds of supplements and vitamins to choose from, all packed with 100% all-natural proven ingredients. You can be sure that Muscle Tech will give you the edge and the boost to train and look like your fit and healthy best, whatever your goals are. Try Muscle Tech today and use promo code SNAKESPORTS to save 30% off your purchases.
Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
Check out the Con Man live on the Sports Corner, coming to a screen near you, giving you the greatest stories from basketball legends you've never seen before. Sharing their glory, building the toughness, and how they show off their swag. But only one man knows all that, and that's the Con Man. Join Michael Conceição, the Con Man, at the Sports Corner, Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific on Sports Wade Network.
Don't lose your seat today when you use SeatGeek. Check out why they are the most trustworthy ticketing app on the planet. SeatGeek has you covered with the best seats available for possibly for the Super Bowl. Also, for your favorite concerts with your favorite artists to get you closer into the action. And your favorite comedy shows, art shows, whatever you desire. SeatGeek has you covered with the best guaranteed seats to find at the most affordable price. SeatGeek.com. Use promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off of your first purchase of your first ticket. That's SeatGeek.com. Available also on the App Store and Google Play. So, I've been listening to, I listen to sports radio almost every morning. That's just kind of my normal routine. Call it boring, call it whatever you want. I don't care. I listen to sports betting, every morning. That's like my morning coffee. I absolutely love it. And this is kind of interesting. So, and again, I don't know if Colin Cowherd is literally a mind reader, but I was literally thinking about this before even jumping up onto my show, and he was like just the first one at it. But I'm going to get to it. So, we now have a full list of head coaches. So Dan Quinn takes the Washington Commanders job, which I don't think is a bad job at all. You got the number 2 overall pick. You probably may end up going and drafting a quarterback, which is what it kind of sounds like. The trouble they had was on defense. Montez Sweat, Chase Young, they're both gone. You lost both your edge rushers. Dan Quinn comes in, who produced one of the top best defenses in the league in the Cowboys. But the other thing is, too, is that he's away from Jerry Jones's pressure. Washington, this was an interesting gig outside of the Chargers because you've got a brand new ownership. You've got a brand new smart GM from San Francisco, Adam Peters. And now there's Dan Quinn, who was a former head coach of the Falcons at one point, but was very, very big as a defensive coordinator for both the Seahawks and the Cowboys. The Commanders have an interesting position ahead of them because now Dan Quinn will be facing off against his former team twice a year. Same goes for Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator for the Eagles twice a year against the Cowboys. Now you're going to have both of your best coordinators facing off against Dallas, and Dallas is not going to like that. But besides that, all the coaching windows have now closed. And only 2 coaches who are high ranked did not get jobs. One, I believe, I was very shocked that he never even got the job. And the other kind of seemed like down the road he felt a little bit more tone deaf. So Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick, the both of them are very, very quality head coaches. I like both of them. The only difference is that Vrabel, he's willing to innovate. It's all what it's about. They're big on offenses now in the league. And plus, you've got all these youngsters, whether offensively or defensively, that you can build them up to be superstars. And Mike Vrabel, he's the kind of guy that does that. Think about it. He's won division titles. He's also gotten them, the Titans, into the playoffs with Ryan Tannehill. And the defense situationally was so damn good. Jeffrey Simmons. You also had at one point, it was Jarrell Casey who was really, really good before he moved on. And then you have Danico Autry. You had several really good defensive fronts, linebackers, defensive backs. Secondaries were playing really well. The last year, and I would probably say the year before that, took a turn for the worst. A.J. Brown gets traded, not Vrabel's fault. That was all front office. The second you traded away your best receiver, you were going to get fired the next day, and that's what happened. So they had a change in the general managing. Next, you got defenses riddled with injuries, and Tannehill, who kind of looks like he's past his prime, and Derrick Henry. He's starting to kind of get older, and usually is what happens with running backs. So none of this was all on Mike Vrabel at all. Now, in Belichick's case, Belichick wants more power. That's the problem with New England. Now, New England's going with their young potential successor in Gerard Mayo. I don't know how that's going to work out. I hope it works for the best. But I'm going to tell you, I won't be surprised if this basically sounds like this is an organization still tone deaf, regardless having Bill Belichick. Now, I think Mike Vrabel has a higher chance getting a head coaching job than Belichick does. Because Belichick, his track record as far as draft picks have been horrifying. That's what's hindering his chances. He could take a year off and basically evaluate. Maybe that's what's going through Bill's head. Because the narrative is that he's stubborn, he's kind of past the timeline, and is not willing to be very innovative in new technologies in this culture. So that's what kind of hindered the whole thing. That's why Brady left. That's why Brady had enough of it. Dante Scarnecchia, who was a really, really good scouter, you lose him, you lose the last general manager, you're now kind of exposed. And then you lose Josh McDaniels. You're not exactly the same coach. Belichick is very solid as a defensive coach. We all can admit that. He's produced really good, he's produced very, very good defenses over the years. But I think at this point, it was kind of time to take a year off, evaluate. Maybe Belichick does come back. If he learns a lot of it, and we could tell by the tone of voice, we could tell by his intelligence on it. If he really does learn this within a year, we could see him back in the NFL. But Vrabel has a much higher chance because of the fact that we've seen him in his track record with Tennessee. He was willing to end up taking a lot of these players, especially on defense, and make them situationally good. That's what he's all about. Now, in the NFL, there are 6 to 8 coaching openings every year. There are a couple teams, and I'm going to break them down very, very short. So there's a couple places. Number one, I think the one place that'll be interesting will be the New York Jets. And why I think that job will be opening is because you need to win right now. But the problem of it is you were manipulated by Aaron Rodgers. You got sold on exactly like his philosophy on how his way of winning is done. Woody Johnson is just completely desperate. That's why he went and got Aaron Rodgers. He needed a quarterback right now. They needed to win, especially in a division where Josh Allen is blowing you out twice a year. You got Tua now and Mike McDaniel, who's got the fastest offense. They're blowing you out in games. And then there's New England where you got Belichick. You can't get past him. So the Jets have to win. If they don't win, I don't think it's really necessarily up on Saleh. I think a lot of this is on the ownership and Aaron Rodgers. Saleh's a great coach. I could see him. He looks like he's coaching a college sideline when he's with the Jets. But that job can be opening if they don't win. I would say another job that could be up into the openings would probably be the Jags job. Because Doug Peterson, what the hell was that last season with Trevor Lawrence? They took a complete drop off. Houston looks much more successful with DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud. There's a bright future for him. And Stroud is their franchise quarterback. He's a rock star. He's a guy that's willing to win. And then you've got Shane Steichen in Indianapolis, which we already understand kind of how Jim Irsay works. But you also have him. And then the Titans hired Brian Callahan, an offensive-minded coach who's got to get the offense right to score more points. But that does take a little bit of a toll on the defense. So what do, Jacksonville? Now you're going to potentially lose Calvin Ridley after you used him for 1 year. I thought this team could have honestly won the division. We were wrong about that. Doug Peterson, this is inexcusable. Then it would just basically look like it was more of the team effort than it was of just the coach in Philadelphia. So he has to win. I could say personally, the one job that I think is really incredible is Buffalo. Because if Sean McDermott, you cannot lose at home in the playoffs. That's inexcusable. But at the same time, you cannot just put a cape on Josh Allen. He's not just trying to be the savior of the franchise. He is the franchise. You need to support him. You need to give him some help. It's like a house. You got to give it some insurance. Because at the same time, something breaks, or the house catches on fire, or something goes wrong, you better hope you've got great insurance. That's the one thing that scares me about Buffalo. And I love Josh Allen. He's not going anywhere. You're lucky Josh is young. But if that job opens, I could see Vrabel being the culture setter, and he'll set the tone for Buffalo. And he does not have to be Josh Allen reliant. He just has to fix that defense, get the smart offensive coordinator, and then work the rest. That's all you would really have to do. And Vrabel, he's getting a much bigger upgrade than Tannehill. So I could see that job opening. I could also see if Matt Eberflus does not work in Chicago, Chicago's head coaching job will be open. But I don't think it would really be dependent on Matt Eberflus because he has worked his side of the ball on defense. The defense has played really, really good. As Jeffrey had mentioned earlier, is that that's his pick to basically be the sneaky team in the NFC next year. We could see that. But you've got to get a quarterback. You've got to man your offense. You got to get another weapon. You got to basically man this to where you're pivoting to the offensive side of the ball. You've got to make it work. Whether you have Caleb Williams or Drake May or Justin Fields, whoever your quarterback is, you've got to make it right. You've got to make it right. I would also potentially say the Cowboys job. Mike McCarthy may be open because McCarthy, this is his last year to do it. Now, what sucks is that you're dealing with a meddling owner in Jerry Jones, and Dak Prescott he's limited. You just saw that. You just lost in the wild card game. And yet Jerry Jones loves Dak. That's his guy. That is his guy. He says it all the time. We're going to ride with however long that Dak Prescott is going to take us. Yeah, last few times, Dak Prescott's taken you to nothing but losses in either the wild card or in the divisional round. That is it. Not worthy of an NFC championship appearance, not even worthy of a Super Bowl appearance. Sorry to burst your bubble, Cowboy fans, but that is the truth about Dak Prescott. That's why Micah Parsons called him out. You've got to be able to make this right. If you don't, McCarthy will already be out, but who wants to deal with all that pressure with a meddling owner and Jerry Jones? I don't think anybody does. I would also say Dennis Allen in New Orleans. I'm surprised Dennis Allen still has a job after he's winning 35 to 38% of his games. He's not winning squat. And at the same time, I'm kind of disappointed in Derek Carr. This was an opportunity to win the division, and you got beat by Tampa and Baker Mayfield. Inexcusable. But this is also a team that's got the highest cap hit at 83. You have got to trade and you've got to shed that cap massively. However you plan to do it. There's really good talent on this team, but it seems like they're always giving them a pay raise every single year. That's not how this works. They've got to literally look at themselves in the mirror and they've got to fix this situation. I mean, it's bad. The other job, too, that could potentially be open is the Giants' job. And I think part of that reason is it's not that Brian Daboll can't coach. It's the problem is that front office of the Giants, you overpaid for Daniel Jones, who's $45 million a year, who all he is he's a mirroring image of Eli Manning with a better arm and he's mobile out of the pocket. That is all he is. Daniel Jones, he's not going to win you that many games. And at the same time, and rumor reports, Saquon Barkley could be headed out. You could have paid Saquon parts of that money because that is part of the offenses. Instead, you went the other route. You trusted the quarterback more than your running back. And the quarterback is not all he was made to be. He got hurt. In came Tyrod Taylor and Tommy DeVito. You've got to make this right. And it's more of the Giants' front office than it is of Brian Daboll. So there is mostly some of your head coaching openings. Okay, the Giants are one of them. The Cowboys, the Bills, the Saints. I could also say the Bears. So that's 5. That's 5 right there. Giants, Cowboys, Bills, Bears, and then I would also say, the Saints. So that's 5 potential teams right there. There are at least a couple of other teams as well, but we have to basically wait and see from them. So that was 5 from that point. And then Jacksonville, the Jags, that's 6. So see what I mean? 6 to 8 coaching hires could eventually be open. Now, if Pittsburgh doesn't get this right, this could be another opening. But if Pittsburgh doesn't get their offense going, where they've got a solid offensive line, they've got a really good, they got a really good quarterback, they could clearly draft weapons because they've been doing it for so long. So that's not their problem. The problem is that offense was so stagnant and pop gun. It was so bad. I don't see this as basically being what it is. So there you go. Steelers, that's 7, and then there's the Jets. That's 8. 8 potential hires. I'll recap it again. Giants, Cowboys, Jets, Steelers, Jags. I would also say the Bills. This might take, because there's so many openings, it's going to leave me point blank. So I apologize, guys, but this is literally what it is. I would also say the Saints. The Saints is a job that's open. And then up there within that division, I think I did say the Bears before. But there's 6 to 8. Let's just sum it this way. So there are a lot of teams that could be open for new head coaches. Mike Vrabel and Brian Daboll. If Daboll gets fired by the Giants, that's doing him a favor. That's not a horrible loss. That's a horrible loss for the Giants, but that's not a loss for Brian Daboll personally to be fired by the Giants. What that is that that's a dysfunctional organization that does not know how to win. Look at some of their receivers. I love Darren Waller, and I like, some of their players, but that needs to be fixed. You've got to get Daniel Jones to win. If he doesn't, it's more on the quarterback than it is of the coach. And this is the thing. If Brian Daboll basically wins, that quarterback better be out because that's not going to work with this offense. But if that doesn't happen, I could see Daboll reuniting with Josh Allen because Josh Allen will be storming into the Bills front office and said, look, this was my successor. I want him back. I want him back in the office. Or you could settle for Mike Vrabel. Make the defense better, not have to be so Josh Allen reliant. You're very confident in your quarterback, and you could go and draft another weapon. You could go and get another receiver depending on what's happening with Stephon Diggs. 6 to 8 coaching openings, and there's so many of them. And there are some quality coaches up out there, whether it's coordinators, whether it's, past head coaches that are out there. But this is the thing, is Vrabel is going to have the better chances of basically getting the head coaching job than I believe Belichick does. But for Bill Belichick, he has to take a long look in the mirror. Know that times have changed. You got to be adaptive with cultures. You got to set the tone for cultures. You got to be smart when it comes to, first of all, I don't want power in personnel. He's a defensive coach, and we've seen what happened with the Patriots. One quarterback that's hit in the last 3 years since Brady left. That's the deal. That's the deal with Belichick. So to me, got to work this right. Learn it a little bit. Pay attention. Be the student for a second. Sometimes that is hard. It's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. But maybe be the student. Be the guy. And then I think if you start to notice on his tone and you start to notice what's run through his mind and how intelligent that he gets, maybe you do get him a coaching gig. Maybe you do. But I think this is really, really interesting. But again, it's always 6 to 8 coaching jobs that are there. Always. And so I don't expect, again, this is how it is in the NFL. Owners are much more impatient. They're much more incompetent, but they want to win. There are some that really, 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 really want to win. So you got to ask yourself. I mean, I think Vrabel and Dable would be perfect for that Buffalo job. And this is why when we looked at the head coaching hirings this year, Jim Harbaugh lives and breathes Michigan, but he's also coming back to the Chargers. He's a culture setter. Once the Chargers moved out of San Diego, there was no culture for them. Now you have to find a culture builder. Harbaugh is the one. Dan Quinn, Washington, he brings some attitude and some juice, and he's got some really, really good he's got a really good resume when it comes to defenses. You can man the defense, and you can go and get a star quarterback. You got receivers. You got running backs. You could probably go and get a tight end, get another weapon, but you've got some guys on the offense. You can work that out just fine and then remind the Cowboys exactly why it is they had a top-tier defense. Seattle, I don't know what to think about Seattle. Seattle's unpredictable. I don't know what's going to happen with Geno Smith. I almost kind of feel like that if you were going for quarterback, and if Chicago's willing to, if they're going to go Caleb Williams, I could see Justin Fields working in Seattle. One, he's mobile, he's got a decent arm, and he's also got really good weapons there. And he'll be back with Jackson Smith and Jigba. And he's got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. The run game will be solid, and he can move out of the pocket. That could work for Mike MacDonald. And also the defense will be really, really good. Well, it's unpredictable. It's a young coach we're talking about here. The Raiders have exactly a culture guy in Antonio Pierce. And they've also got Tom Telesco, their general manager. They also hired Cliff Kingsbury as their offensive coordinator. You could see that the Raiders are tired of the narrative with Kansas City, just like the Chargers are. So they're willing to beef it up. That's why I think Pierce brings the attitude, he brings the culture, and then the rest of it is all on the front office. They'll bring the talent in. They'll bring the guys in. So you really have to kind of consider that. New England and Gerard Mayo, I don't know how that's going to honestly work. If it works out perfectly for Gerard Mayo and they do get a quarterback, maybe he works. If he's learned anything from Bill, it's having a solid defense. That could save his job. But then also you got Raheem Morris in Atlanta. He's used to this organization, knows Arthur Blank, knows how this works. And he also got Zach Robinson, the offensive coordinator from LA. Sean McVay's trees continue to just spread. It continues to thrive. So I think there's room for success for Raheem Morris. Titans end up going and getting their offensive coordinating success in Cincinnati and Brian Callahan because he's worked well with Joe Burrow and he's worked really well with Jake Browning. Maybe he might end up working to rejuvenate Will Levis. That could be the outcome. But Tennessee really has to make this work. So, again, the coaching hires you saw this year, Imagine what the coaching openings will be next year. 6 to 8 of them. And they're all up for grabs. But there is going to be some hot seats out there. But that's why I think it's so interesting, yet it's fun in the NFL. I will never push for a coach to get fired harshly, depending on what's been their recency. That's it. But I will not push hard for a coach to basically lose his job unless you gave me a valid reason to. That's it. So, and these coaching hires next year are going to be really interesting. But I think there's plenty of both, of pros and cons on taking those jobs. There always is. But as long as your draft position is exactly key, you also have a really good cap situation. The general manager, like the front office, is unbelievable, and it's perfect. It's stable. That's the difference. You could, and you have the quarterback. You may have the superstar quarterback. That's what makes it so special about Jim Harbaugh and the Chargers, because he's got Justin Herbert. That's the outlier. So if you don't have the quarterback, might as well go and draft a superstar. Or you could possibly get one up in free agency, however you work this. But you got to have a quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see how all of this pans out. But I think this is the right thing for Vrabel and Belichick to take a year off. Belichick just needs to self-reflect, and he needs to literally look at recently what went wrong. And for Vrabel, he's just waiting for the perfect opportunity to come his way. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. What a week. What a week. I was so happy with how this week turned out for us. We had James Canada that was on with us. We had Derek Fields covering for the Detroit Lions. And then tonight, Justin Hardin and Jeffrey Hooks. Appreciate all of them for their fantastic and very upbeat interviews. Appreciate every single one of them for taking the time. That's going to do it here for the show. What a week. I'm so excited for Super Bowl week because it's going to be nothing but Super Bowl and all the rest of the narratives. So it'll be fun. And we're going to have a lot more interviews where that came from. So you do not want to miss it. Like, follow, subscribe, hit the bell button for all latest notifications to keep you up to date on future and past shows. The show is sponsored by BetUS, where the game begins. Sign up at BetUS.com to get 125% bonus and 30 risk-free bets when you sign up. BetUS, where the game begins, and by SeatGeek. Don't lose your seat with SeatGeek. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download it on your mobile device through Google Play in the App Store and use promo code SNAKESPORTS to get $20 off of your first ticket purchase as a way of saying thanks for choosing the most reliable ticketing option for all of your event needs. SeatGeek.com, promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off. Don't miss out on the opportunity. That's going to do it for me. We will see you next week on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Sayonara and take care, guys.